What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking with Mr. Stephen Grant. For as long as I can remember, I've wanted a Grant transmission. My dad used to get transmissions built by his dad, Mr. Emmett Grant. I've always wanted one of these, and I finally got a chance to get one. I figure there's a lot of you guys out there that have AODs that are interested in what it takes to do the 4R70 type, internals in them. We're going to touch on that today. There was a few things that we left out that we forgot to talk about, but we will cover it more in an upcoming video. The transmission is in the car. It's running great. I absolutely love this thing. So huge shout out to Stephen Grant, Grant Transmissions. Guys, pop some headphones in, sit back, relax, listen to the master himself, and we'll go ahead and get to the video.
On your direct clutch, the setup they had in there actually only had 5 plates in it, which most of your 4R70s actually ran 6. With a little bit of joggling on the thickness and then cutting a slight snap ring relief on the pressure plate, I've actually got 7 back where you had 5 in it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow! I know we talked about doing 6.
Yeah,
so
gives you a lot more holding power for your direct and everything.
Nice.
And then, like I say, this setup, you've got 4 instead of 3 on your second gear.
So you want to mention that again, so we know what we're.
Yeah.
So it had the AOD pressure plate.
Yeah, this is the AOD pressure plate here, and you can see the hot spots where it had burnt. Only had 3 plates in it. This is the 4R70. So this one being thinner, you can actually put a 4th plate in for your second gear. Okay. So, and then we actually used this Sonex drum for your forward clutches. Not only is it a steel, a better quality material and everything, but it also, instead of 5 plates, that drum has 6 plates on it now.
I knew we had talked about that. That's what I was thinking about before. Okay, so we got more plates pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, and then this is the 8+ servo I was telling you about. That's just a step larger diameter than the factory 8, which is actually getting kind of hard to find now.
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah.
You did make the Transgo work with the TCI valve body?
What I ended up doing, I took both of them completely apart, did some comparisons. The only thing that I could really see that had been done to the TCI, they had a slightly different plate and had eliminated a couple of holes and had some other ones that were really a little extra large. It looked like they had changed the pressure regulator spring, and they had one place where they had put like a little block in the casting. That was really the only modifications I could see they had done. So I went ahead and went back to the stock separator plate and the Transgo kit. So like I said, the main thing now, I kind of kept all your parts and pieces together, even some of the original springs, so that we, obviously we may end up having to go back and do some fine tuning since we're running the different ratio plant and everything.
Did you mind talking about that for a second? Something that we mentioned. We're going to try this out, essentially. So this is a little bit of trial and error. I know this isn't something most people really do, but having a channel and everything else, we've agreed to just try this because we're both curious. You do think it'll probably work, but I'll let him go ahead and explain exactly what it was we were talking about.
Yeah, there's a lot of information where, even with the shift kit, it says that the high rev kit does not work when you change the planet ratios. There are some companies out there that are advertising doing custom valve bodies, specifically for this. I personally have not had enough call for doing that I've, got down to the testing and tuning of what does and doesn't. I do know that I have one myself on an old Bronco that I did like this 100,000 miles ago that, we've beat on it and, I love it.
So that's got the Transgo.
Yeah, same deal. It's got the Transgo kit. We've got the governor valve set up in it where, wide open throttle, it shifts at $5,000. With yours, I went one step up from that. I made some notes on the instructions. I figured I'd maybe let you keep all this stuff. Okay. That way it's all in one box together. And that way if we do end up going back trying to do a little fine tuning, I'm thinking, worst case scenario with the gears that you're running, I don't know. I'm still of the opinion that we can maybe go back and tweak it with the governor or the TV cable and get it to where, you're gonna live with it and enjoy it, because the shift is gonna be so much better
than it was
Yeah.
anyway. So yeah,
and the main thing, like even when you want a manual shift and you want to do the shuttle thing, when you bump it to drive, kind of take a breath before you pull it back and let it completely be in second gear. You don't have to just like go up and snatch it back right now.
that's true.
Just give us split second hesitation there for it to engage and then pull it back.
That makes sense.
And then, like I had mentioned to you before too, that's really the only thing that I've had any. I guess if you wanted a complaint with my Bronco, it does have a tendency to shift into fourth gear fairly quick if you leave it in overdrive. So a lot of times I just put it in drive and then I just manually select fourth gear overdrive when I want it.
That's true.
That way it's not kind of chugging and lugging around. Which the one difference with my Bronco, it does still have the lockup in it, because I did this many years ago when it wasn't even a thing yet. I just saw the parts and realized they would interchange. And it's like, hey, this is cool. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Now, one of the other concerns with the Transgo was the fact that, well, obviously the gear ratios are different with the 4R70W.
Right.
All right. So that's part of the concern. If anybody's wondering what we're talking about here, the gear ratios are different. So it's essentially going to spin a little faster, and it's going to think that we're going faster than we are. So it could possibly shift earlier. But the other thing was the gears, my gears. So running 410s, you think could also affect it?
Yeah, and some of the other information I've read, one person actually suggested that the 373 was, possibly a better gear for running the 4R70 gear set, because your first gear ratio has changed from 240 to 284, I believe, are the numbers. So, first gear is considerably lower with the 4R70 gears. Second gear changed slightly, but not that much. So yeah, you might have a situation where it's going to spin up pretty quick in first gear and go right into second. But I think maybe, like I say, with the governor and some TV adjustments, I think we can still get it where you can live with it and still have something that if you want to manual shift it to get it somewhere you can too.
And obviously, this thing's going to shift on its own. If you haven't grasped that yet, we decided not to go with a manual valve body. That's an option we could do later on if we wanted to. I just really don't want to shift the car like that. But what we're trying to do is get the most performance out of this thing, and it still feels somewhat stock.
I know everybody's curious about the TV cable adjustment procedures and all. There seems to be a lot of question about that. I think what I saw you do in one of the videos where at an idle, you made sure that there was, a slight pull on the cable. That's definitely true. You don't want it to just completely be slack. I've also done it from like wide open. I mean, a max setting would be if you pulled it, your throttle body wide open, and the transmission cable actually hits the stop at the same time. That's an absolute max.
Okay.
The AOD doesn't normally have to run at that much. That's usually too much. It literally just won't ever shift unless you let off the throttle at that. The official method, you need to put a 100-pound gauge on it. I was going to show you the tool that you actually use. It's the only one I have, or I just give it to you. But they actually tell you here how to make a tool with a 5/16 bolt. So basically what you're doing is you're making this little block be a 1/4 inch thick here. And then you cut the slot in it. So what you're doing is you take the cable and you pull it out the end of the adjuster block and you put this in as a spacer. So you're essentially, what you're doing as at an idle, you're pulling the cable a 1/4 inch.
I got you.
And then they're telling you the pressures that you should see at that point. I think it's 24 to 40 PSI with this tool installed.
Okay.
That's the official way of doing it, and then you can fine tune it. Well, like they tell you there, you definitely don't want anything less than 24 pounds. But you can fine tune it a click or two, one way or the other, to get your points kind of where you want them from there. I have had some transplant situations, even like on my own truck. You know, I'm running a carburetor and, you know, homemade brackets and all. Geometry is never perfect on something like that. So, you know, I in some situations like that, I've literally gotten frustrated, thrown the gauge away, and just done it, you know, seat of the pants, and you know, it's worked out.
So one thing that I do want to cover real quick, because I know a lot of people don't understand the TV cable adjustment. So on the initial adjustment, so if you're starting from scratch and you've got your AOD or whatever the case may be, and you're wanting to adjust it, I'm trying to think how we can word this. You don't want slack in it. So that's the one thing. Like if you're worried about, if you're trying to line this thing up, what you don't want is for this thing to be loose and slack. What you do want to do is pull it back a little bit so it's got some tension. That's something that me and you talked about. I think a lot of people think it's the opposite way. They don't want any tension on that cable, and they want it to be slack. So it's kind of hard to explain unless you can explain it a little bit better. I mean, it's what we've already talked about, but it is definitely better to go with a little more pressure on that TV cable than to leave it loose.
Yeah, you would be better to be at that max setting, you know, where your throttle hit wide open at the same time the transmission hit the stop, and then back it up from there. Because at least if you started at the max and start backing down, you're not going to be starting too low and working your way up. That will kill the transmission.
There we go. That's what I want you guys to hear. You go too loose and you're going to kill it. When you hear you have to have your TV cable adjusted correctly or it'll kill an AOD. Yeah, it's true, but typically it's going to be from being too loose. So that affects line pressure, correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's where you're going to mess it up. It's not so much from being tight. It's from being loose. So that's what I want you guys to hear and understand if you were wondering.
Yeah, being too tight might make it where, you know, literally you've got to lift completely off the throttle to get it to shift, but, you know, that's not going to burn up clutches. You know,
exactly.
Whereas the other way around, it's going to burn up clutches. Because it's a pressure play. Your governor pressure is having to overcome throttle pressure to make a shift, but that throttle pressure is very important in the AOD to make it live. I mean, it just will not live if it doesn't. Like it said on those instructions, with that tool installed, 24 is an absolute minimum, and that's really what killed more AODs back in the day before that little metal bushing came out. Especially when they went to the setup where the cable hangs like upside down, because the grommet would deteriorate, the cable would drop loose. You know, somebody's cruising down the road, you know, with their cruise control on maybe 60, 65 miles an hour, cable drops out, goes back to idle, 15, 20 miles, third, fourth gear's gone.
And, you know, we've all heard those stories about, man, you know, I killed an AOD of just a couple of miles of driving it. It could happen, right? That thing comes loose and falls out. I want to say, Andrew, your car, wasn't yours deteriorated on your white car?
Yeah, that ain't what killed the transmission.
Yeah, but it probably didn't help it for sure. Driving around like that is definitely not a good thing. Well, guys, I want to take you around real quick and show you the transmission. Stephen, you've done excellent work. This thing is beautiful here. Nice, clean job, as you would expect. This is the old AOD. We ended up not using any parts or not.
I was going to try to use the valve body, but I ended up just using the plate. There was a bore in that valve body that was not machined correctly, and the valve literally would not move. So, yeah, I just used the valve body plate out of that transmission.
So this had a TCI valve body, which you're not necessarily a fan of.
Well, it's not even cataloged anymore. So, yeah, and I read some reviews on it, and they were kind of up and down. So, yeah, really, the Transgo is my personal preference. Been doing Transgo shift kits since I was about 15 years old.
Yeah,
so.
I like the Transgo stuff.
Yeah, they're hard to beat.
You guys, you're very aware of the Transgo stuff for an AOD. It works really good. Well, guys, look, I just wanted to kind of take you along for the ride. Do you mind if I just pan around the shop?
Yeah, don't pay attention to my mess. I'm so busy. I ain't cleaned up in months.
No, it looks. Trust me, you can tell you're an organized guy. But this is Steven's shop, guys. I love it. I love the way you got your stuff laid out over here. Your transmission table.
We got another AOD in the works.
Another AOD in the works.
This one, we're going to go to a one-piece shaft.
Oh.
Nice little setup here.
Yeah.
Actually run a C6 spline custom converter in it. This is actually going to be for a little 74 box Bronco.
Okay.
Got this is a converter company that I've used quite a bit for a lot of years now and had really good luck with them.
Yep.
They're actually called Precision Industries. They're in Tennessee. This Precision Industries has always kind of been known for the paint converters.
Yep.
They called the Mustang converters back in the day were the Stallions.
Yep, that's it.
I mean, it was a bolt-in half a second for a Mustang.
My Lightning had a Precision.
Yeah,
Yep.
I've used these. Now, this Precision of New Hampton, like you had done, they seem to be doing a nice job too. You know,
that's a
nice custom built. Looked like the paint was a little wet still, but yeah, it's all a one-piece machine cover. You know,
Very
heavy
nice.
flange style hub. Yeah, they literally they build these converters to application. But yeah, that's the next one I've got going. But yeah, this is the AOD valve body. I'm going to put everything back in it just to keep it, you know, done in one piece. But yeah, there was a bore on that just was not machined correctly.
All right. So that's the one that was out of the old one over there?
Yeah.
Okay. Walk over and look at that. That looks like one of the other Precision.
Yeah, that's
converters.
Precision New Hampton. I use theirs in all my stock rebuilds now. We were having quite a bit of torque converter issues last year and switched over to them, and everything's gone much better since then.
Well, this is a valve body that came out of the stock one that I brought over here to you.
Yeah, this valve, well, you can see where I kind of scarred a little bit even trying to get it out. Whenever it was initially installed, the bore itself is just too tight. It hits a spot right there where it just stops.
Yeah. Huh.
And I even pulled a steel valve out of another valve body that won't go in there either.
Huh.
So it's like, yeah, we're not gonna.
Yeah, so we opted out of using that just to be safe.
Yeah, we'll take a chance on that.
Well, look, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Hey, Steven, I appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
He stays busy. It's pretty much just you here, right?
Oh yeah.
For the most part. So as you can see, he's got a lot of stuff going on. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. We'll get this transmission home and we'll get it in the car probably next week. And as always, thanks for watching. Guys, we're going to leave it just leave it in overdrive and see what happens. We may have to make some TV cable adjustments, but